We have something that we refer to as religious psychoprojection or religious psychomanifestation that manifests certain objects or events that are supposed to happen, whether it's people predicting end of world events or whether it's physical objects that have to exist historically because there's a narrative of non-contradiction. And one of these great examples of a manifestation, that a thing that is projected that it had to exist, is a tree. That there's no biblical text of it, there's no mention of it in any individual verse, nor a reason for the tree to exist in either of the individual verses. What we have is there's two different accounts of Judas' death, and one of the accounts in Matthew says that Judas threw down some silver and that he left the temple and went and hung himself. The temple is inside of the city. You don't need a tree to hang yourself inside of the city. He could have hung himself anywhere, off of any number of buildings or houses inside of the city. Then the other account we have in the book of Acts, that he fell headlong in a field and he died. You also don't need a tree for this. He could have fell on sharp rocks. He could have tumbled down a hill or whatnot, or he could have, cut himself with a knife or a dagger, and fell headlong and his guts burst out. But the reason that the tree exists is because the people reading this book assume that there is complete univocality. And if people assume that there is no contradictions in advance, they presuppose it, then they have to make the accounts line up. And sometimes when you're trying to make accounts line up, you need something that's not present inside of the text. And in this case, they needed to have two different things. They needed it to be inside of the field. The scene had to be inside of the field. And for him to be hung inside of the field, they had to have a tree to hang him from. So the tree, when you read either of the two accounts individually, the tree isn't necessary, and the tree isn't in any text. The tree has to be created in the reader's mind for a way to reconcile that there is no contradictions. But they have to presuppose that there's no contradictions, and then they need to create the tree. So this is a type of psycho-manifestation, that the tree is manifested or created because they presuppose a non-contradiction. But this is not the only psycho-manifestation that happens. We get a lot of these psycho-manifestations that happen in religious history. And you get a lot of them that happen because of propositions or presupposing that there's no contradictions. Another one is when you look at the book of Matthew, their genealogy of Jesus and Luke's genealogy of Jesus, both of these trace the genealogy back from David to Joseph. And while some people that want to maintain that there's no contradictions, because these are two very different lineages and very different lengths, the people that will try to maintain that there's no contradictions will say, well, that one is a legal heritage, one is a legal lineage, and one is an actual lineage. And there's no reason to think that anyone ever done this, that this was a practice. But it winds up getting purported as, oh yeah, this was a practice, this was a thing that they did. So then they have to create a narrative of that this was common, and then there's no historicity of this being common whatsoever. There's no other record to my knowledge of anyone doing it for a lineage track. But to make sure that the narrative that they've already said that there's no contradictions in, it's necessary to create this rule set that this is how they do things. And this happens over and over. We've had a lot of things like prophecies and whatnot that people will say this is the end of the world. And to understand why they're doing this, they have observed something, or they thought something was the case that they read biblically, and they thought there was some deeper meaning or something there. And additionally, they thought something that happened inside of real-time events was prophetic, or it meant something. And then for them to reconcile this in their mind, they have to create this event. And this is why we get these apocalyptic prophecies that happen all the time. We actually just had one last night. We had August the 2nd at 12 o'clock that the world was supposed to end. they're not new. We're going to get them forever. They're not going to go anywhere. But this is the reason that they're happening, this psycho-manifestation. It is a necessity to reconcile some ideal that they got in their head. And in the same way that the tree had to be manifested, it had to be created to reconcile those two accounts, or they have to have some rule that rectifies. We've gotten this over and over. It's probably why we have the ideal of Mary being born of a virgin, that she's a virgin birth, because there's a concept of uncleanness, and that they have to meet this concept of uncleanness, so she had to have been a virgin birth. So these are concepts that they get manifested because we already have preconcepts, and we have to make those preconcepts align with what's going on presently. But they're always going to happen. These psycho-manifestations, they create whole new objects. They create whole new rule sets. We actually even have, I think there's a term, I'm sorry I can't come up with it, but it's a term for prophecy, that a prophecy has a dual meaning, that there's two different meanings for the prophecy. And this prophecy name is thrown around all the time now in theology, because sometimes there are prophecies that don't look like they're fully fulfilled. So now they've created this narrative, that there's plenty of prophecies that have a dual meaning. And that, yes, part of it was fulfilled, but part of it was more, it meant more in the spirit. It wasn't a physical fulfillment. So it's a prophecy that was meant to have two different meanings in two different ways. Well, this is being created because, first of all, they want to rectify that the prophecies, that they are all being fulfilled, but some of the prophecies you can't rectify that they are fulfilled in that time frame, or that they will be fulfilled at all. So now you have to create a new rule set, and this is just a manifestation. It is a psycho-projection. It's no different than the tree. You have invented it to make it rectify the problem. So I just wanted to talk about that. We run into a lot of these psycho-manifestations or psycho-projections. Most of them are rule sets. Most of them are not physical objects. But the tree is a great example of a physical object. It's been created for probably over 1,000 years, that Christians that tell the story or the narrative to try to rectify the death of Judas, they have to create the tree. The tree is a necessity. And whenever you have conversations or debates about the tree, why even create the tree? Well, they'll tell you, well, the tree isn't obvious. It has to exist. But the only reason that it has to exist is because you're presupposing univocality. You're presupposing that these are not two separate stories and accounts. One, the last time we seen or heard anything of Judas, he was inside of the city. He had just left the temple. And the other, he was out in a field. So you manifest the tree to try to rectify the problem, but that textually it doesn't exist, and in any individual verse it doesn't need to exist. But if you have the necessity that it can't contradict, it absolutely has to be completely univocal, then you have to manifest. You have to create something. And in a lot of ways, this is no different than creating these prophecies of when the world is going to end or anything else. It's you've imagined something up, and it has to be so real to you that it's unquestionable, because it's the only way that you can make the preconceptions that you already have about that religious structure true. It's the only way that you can join the two and make them correct. So it has to be the case, and then you just project it. But anyway, just wanted to speak about it. Appreciate your time.